Let's say you installed some EV chargers on your property and they start generating carbon credits. Then obviously those credits are yours and you get to keep them, right? But what happens when it comes time for you to sell them and make some money and you realize they're not there? They've been snaked out from underneath you. But how is this possible? What happened? Today, we'll be talking about carbon credits, what they are, why they're valuable, and how to make sure you hold on to them. If you're new here, my name's Trevor, and if not, welcome back to the channel. I helped launch 2 successful EV charging startups, and now I make videos on how it works. And I promise you, if you subscribe to this channel, you'll learn everything you need to know to stay ahead of the curve. First off, what are carbon credits? Let's just use a really basic, simple example. We all know that most businesses have some form of negative impact on the environment, whether big or small. And governments know this too. So they've decided to help try and mitigate this by introducing the carbon credit system. Let's say that at the beginning of the year, every business is given 100 carbon credits as an example. 1 carbon credit equals 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. So essentially having 1 carbon credit allows a business to emit 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide into the environment. Using our example, if at the end of the year, a business has emitted more than that 100 tons of carbon dioxide into the environment, then they'll be hit with heavy taxes for exceeding the limit. Think big gas companies like Shell and Chevron. And these taxes are expensive, but instead of paying these heavy taxes, they can choose to offset them by purchasing other people's carbon credits to make up for it. And buying these carbon credits will be less expensive than having to pay these big taxes. Most companies won't exceed their carbon credit limit, but again, if your company's like Shell or Chevron, you'll definitely be looking to buy some carbon credits at the end of the year. And on the flip side, if your company was environmentally friendly and didn't use all your carbon credits, then at the end of the year, you'll have extra that you can sell and make a profit from. Pretty great, right? But you can also generate carbon credits. And one way to create carbon credits is actually through EV chargers. But just because you installed EV chargers on your property doesn't mean that the carbon credits are automatically yours. And this is what I want to talk about today. Okay, so who gets them? Well, first, I should note that there's lots of different types of carbon credits in different places and they all work differently. There's also different terminology. Sometimes they're called clean fuel credits. Sometimes they're called carbon offset credits. Here in British Columbia, we have 2 types of carbon credits. The CFR, which is the Clean Fuel Regulation Credit, and that's federal. And then we have the provincial credit, which is the LCFS, which stands for Low Carbon Fuel Standard. I'll go into the differences and the specifics between the carbon credits in another video, but this video is just about how to make sure that you hold on to them. And here's where things get tricky. So in the EV charging world, carbon credits don't automatically go to the host or the owner of the EV chargers. Sometimes they're given to the EV charging company or the network operator. If you're hosting an EV charger on your property, you might assume you have rights to those carbon credits. In most cases though, especially if the charging company owns and operates the charger, they'll be taking those carbon credits unless you've negotiated otherwise. Now, I have mixed emotions about this because the EV charging company will need to use that money to invest back into their business, which will help them grow. This is my industry and I want it to do well and keep growing. But in this video, I'm looking out for the host. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room. Can EV charging companies really steal your carbon credits? Technically, no, because they're not stealing them. But many of the contracts and agreements are structured so that the carbon credits will automatically go to the EV charging company. And often this is without the host or the owner knowing so. So, I mean, they're not stealing them, but it's kind of one of those situations where if you don't ask, they won't tell. Now, to some people, this isn't a big deal. they don't really know much about carbon credits or how they work or how much money they're worth, and they just don't want to deal with it all. But if you play the game and use carbon credits to your advantage, they can definitely help bring in some extra money and help pay off your EV chargers even faster. One thing I should note though is it's not so simple. It's not like, oh, I created a carbon credit and now I can just sell it online. There's a bit of a process to it and a barrier to entry. So in order to even generate one carbon credit, there's a limit to how much electricity must have had to go through your charger. And this is 15,000 kilowatts. So if you had like 4 chargers all lined up and people were using them often, maybe even on a daily basis, then you could hit that 15,000 kilowatt threshold in less than a year. Also, these carbon credits aren't sold one at a time. These big gas companies or whoever needs them, they like to purchase them in big batches. So they're usually grouped together with other people that are trying to sell them, and you'll need help to do this. Usually you'll need help from a third party to sell your credits. And this is usually done through, they used to be called aggregators, but now I think they're called allocators. But they essentially just help facilitate the deal. And I believe as of right now, if you were to stack the 2 carbon credits together, they would be worth over $500. Okay, so as a host, how do you make sure to hold on to your carbon credits? And it all comes down to the contract. Make sure you really read through the contract. And if you see anything that says allocation agreement, make sure you don't just blindly sign it. Really read through and make sure to understand this section, because an allocation agreement is the document that decides who gets the carbon credits. And if you just blindly sign the allocation agreement, then you've just agreed to allocate or give your carbon credits to the charging company. Here's a big one though, and it's who owns the chargers. Last video, we talked about charging as a service, and this is where the EV charging company still owns the chargers, and they paid for the entire project to have them installed at your location. In this case, it may be part of their agreement that they will receive the carbon credits for these chargers because they paid for everything. And honestly, I think this is fair. I think whoever paid for the chargers should also receive the carbon credits. In my opinion, if I paid for something, I damn sure better receive all the benefits that come from it. Okay, so this is how you protect yourself. If you're a property owner or an EV charging entrepreneur, here are 3 tips to make sure you don't leave any money or credits on the table. And the first one is to put those contracts under the microscope. Make sure your contract is very clear about who gets the carbon credits that are generated from the EV chargers. The second one is ownership. If you own the chargers outright, then you're in a much better position to claim all those carbon credits. And the third one is to work with experts. So there are actually carbon credit specialists or carbon credit management companies that can help you navigate this complex process. EV chargers can already be very lucrative and make you a lot of money, but the carbon credits are just icing on top of the cake. They could be worth a lot of money in the future, so it's in your best interest to try to hold on to them. If you had any thoughts, feel free to leave them in the comments below. As always, I love all my subscribers. I really appreciate you following the journey. Thanks so much for checking in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.